Hey, what's up here, guys? Here's a deck today for you that is pretty notorious for its time as one of the top dogs. We were talking about, of course, Combative Kami. Definitely not something I came up with. I have to give shout outs to Brian Fogler, quite the innovator. Everyone, I think a lot of people did actually consider Orange Kami, at least I shouldn't say maybe a lot of people, but I have definitely thought about it before the point, but I never was the guy who built it, and I sure as hell did not have I guess the makings to make such a dynamite list that he initially did. And I had played on him against him a few times in Octagon here and there. I've actually never played him in person with that particular deck. I've been out to the East Coast only like once myself, but I was very impressed with the results of the list. And, I have pretty much the core here. I think mine's probably slightly different from way back when. Granted, now, VTP is not a legal card for competitive play at the moment. So, of course, this deck is a little bit different. I think this deck is still a deck that is totally fine without visiting the past. I really think it's still a very strong deck. Combative is still very strong in general. He is one of the big three. I would even say the big two, really. I think Trunks and Kami are by far the best. You could make an argument, I suppose, maybe for like Android 20. I'm trying to think of, is there anybody else really that I really think it's just those two, really. So I think 20, I personally think 20 kind of falls behind. I think he's just better and adaptive, really. I think the fact that you need to have to protect your drills a lot more with 20 versus Kami doesn't. Kami does care a bit, but, Kami can tutor out the style drills way better, which are really the real power here. And Trunks has prevention or protection from getting bumped up, but still a very strong deck. I've swapped around a few times. I know there's a bit of glare. It's just kind of how my setup is. Hopefully it doesn't get too annoying here, but let's run through my choices of the drills. Now this is definitely a deck that I think is really cool. Really glad that it is a deck in general. Just has some really cool interactions, specifically with Dragon Balls in your level 1. That is really where you're going to spend most of the game. Of course, your level 1, if you don't know what it does, you're going to be shuffling those Dragon Balls. And it doesn't matter if you control them or not, as long as there's an Earth Dragon Ball in play, you put it in the owner's life deck, and then you get to grab Style Drill from your deck. It's energy, pretty cheap, does 3, and gives you some rejuvenation if it hits, which usually people don't really block it. There's actually a pretty good amount of rejuvenation that goes on in this deck, and we'll kind of break it down a little bit as we go. So we'll start off with the drills here. Of course, back when when this deck was kind of getting a lot more traction, we had Orange Focusing Drill, over here. But, whoops. Now we have Orange Attractor Drill in this place. This is definitely strong with Trunks. As you can see, if you have a human trait, you get to choose another style card during your rejuvenation step and rejuvenate it. Kami doesn't get that, but it's kind of, it's a weaker Focusing Drill for Kami. But, it's which you gotta use. But you pretty much any orange drill deck that's running multiple drills, you got to be running that card just to protect your drills. We have orange hiding drill here. Of course, kind of a staple drill for a lot of controller. Not as good as it used to be with a lot of people running Android efficiency drill and a lot of people being stage speed stacks, but I think it's still worth it. A good splash in a lot of these orange drill decks here. Another thing to note is this, with the Traction Drill, you do have to mill yourself if you were going to protect a drill. And since we do run balls, it does make that mill a little less painful, because sometimes you will hit the balls, so it's kind of just like hitting free cards, versus other MPs. We have Orange Conference Drill. Now this is, I think, necessary if you're not, especially if you're not Trunks. You need to make sure that you don't have to worry about I'll Dig Your Grave or Earth Dragon Ball 2s bumping you up and making you lose your entire board sweep. This is really, the importance of this drill is kind of dependent on the matchup. The active power, the constant power on it, other than that, it's pretty nice. The extra prevention is pretty nice if you hit an attack with your mastery. It has to be a style energy attack. You prevent 3 and 3 from attacking your opponent's next action. Well, with this out, you prevent 5 and 5, which is pretty damn powerful. If you were to you could prevent up to 10 damage if they were to throw a physical attack at you in the next action. But really, most people kind of will try to sequence around that mastery hit effect anyway. You're not going to be getting it too often, but really you just have this for the constant effect of keeping your drills. I think it's absolutely necessary, at least to one of. We have Orange Thumbs Up Drill, of course. This card, your opponent mills every time you play. Sorry, they play non-styled. This comboed with your level 1 brings a lot of passive destruction on top of your Guardian Drill over here, which we'll get to. Just a lot of small. This deck really just tries to long game your opponent. You're just trying to slow the game down, retrieve cards, kick out drills, build up a board state that they can't really interact with, and you just keep doing little bits of damage here and there, one card at a time. You have Orange Ore Drill. Now this card is very good. This is something that Kami will probably get like more advantage of than like if a Trunks was running this or Andrew 20. He does have that power on his level 1. You get this drill out. Your level 1 is now 1 for 5, and if it hits you, rejuvenate 1. That's a 6-card swing for a cost of 1 stage, and most of the time people don't block it. And on top of just the passive mill, it really starts to add up against your opponent. And people don't, I think, realize that is like you don't necessarily need these super explosive decks. Sometimes you can just really just like grind someone out pretty well here. We have Orange Checkup Drill, of course, staple drill. This is just a lot of people have strong opinions about this one. I guess I won't get into it too much, but this is just so good of a drill. And the end of combat rejuvenation really goes with your theme of you have multiple cards in this deck that are going to be rejuvenating, like the level 1 in this. There's 3 cards of combat you can get back that you're in just by going through combat if you land your level 1 and this is out. It's a whole card draw that you're replacing. Really nice, and it adds up as the game goes on. Orange Torching Drill. Now this is a drill that I think a lot of people were really running, and this is, I think, one of the things that I have to credit the deck builder to, Brian. Nobody was really running this, and I'm sure I knew some people had been running adaptive decks, random adaptive decks that were running Torching Drill, but this deck really takes, at least did before the Bicycle Kick nerf, really did take really good advantage of this Torching Drill, and it really played on the strength of the deck of just Destruction Mill. But, every time one of your drills enters play, your opponent mills 1. You're going to be, as long as you're going to be drawing Dragon Balls, you're going to be tutoring at least 1 drill of combat with this level 1 here, and potentially a 2nd drill of combat with this Mastery if they put the drills in your discard pile. So this adds up. Same with the Thumbs Up Drill. All this little mill adds up. It's not a quick deck. Okay, the sooner you get these drills out, the better, because you're going to be just like picking apart, a couple of cards here, a couple of cards there, and your opponent's not really going to be making your life deck count move between your rejuvenation effects and also your block drills. You got Hiding Drill, of course, -2ing everything that your opponent's doing. You have Steady Drill here, stops energy attack. I'm not going to pull it out because I'm sure most people know at this point what it does, but stops energy attack. You have Burning Ore Drill, stops physical attack, and these just sit on your table every turn, blocking attacks for you, -2ing all your opponent's damage. We, of course, have Crashing Drill. This is another thing I think not a lot of decks were able to use, and which this deck does use very well, is whenever this card enters play, your opponent mills 1. When it leaves play, your opponent mills 1. This card, with the level 1 just kicking out into play, oh, look, they mill 1. There's an extra damage off the level 1, right? You have Torch and Drill it. Oh, now they're milling 2 now. Oh, sorry, it's Torching. I'm sorry, Torching is when they... when they enter play. I always get it. It's been a little bit since I've been playing this deck. So you're getting these cards in where you combo anything that is like shuffling drills out of play or rejuvenating them. An example of Bicycle Kick, again, one of the big combos of the deck. It's just little bits of mill adding up. We have Shopping Drill, which this is why Orange Combative is tier 1. Honestly, I think this drill here completely changes the matchup. I think this is the most important drill in the deck. You stop your opponent from being able to banish cards from a discard pile. This shuts off multiple MPs. This shuts off pretty much any interaction with your board state at all. Back with Focusing Drill around, I shouldn't say that, but back with Focusing Drill around, that's how it was. And it's still pretty powerful with the Traction Drill, but this protecting your drills when they hit the pile so you can go and mastery them back, or protecting any card that you want from getting banished, shutting off Yamcha level 2, shutting off Majin Vegeta, shutting off, I'm trying to think of some other people. There's being able to turn off Red Panic so people can't banish that to go search Dragon Balls. That's how strong this card is. There's many other interactions I can't even think of off the top of my head right now that this card just stops. Okay, this is an awesome drill that I think really didn't it didn't see much play in most orange decks until Combative. Until this deck was like the first really good Combative deck. I mean, there were others. There were other Combative decks. I know people were playing other Combative decks, but really this was the first really clear and present standout Combative deck that I think really made people turn their heads and go, wow, Combative is really strong. Now, people understood the interaction was really strong, but especially once we started seeing this drill getting played in a lot more Combative decks, this is an incredible drill, and a lot of people really hate this drill. Some people want this thing frozen. Some people want this thing altered and nerfed. I don't know. I think it is a game-changing card, and it is definitely the strongest drill in the deck. We have Orange Empowered Drill, of course. This, I think, is an awesome drill. Really just for that constant. This has been an awesome drill since set 1, just going and doing work against Namekian. Still and always going to be ever powerful, I think. And the best part is you have this card out in Shopping Drill, and you just sit there and you laugh at people because you can just kill their pile and they can't do anything to yours. It's awesome. Like I said, Burning Ore Drill, another physical block. We have, of course, Distracting Drill. Now this is in here for 2 cards, Bicycle Kick and Tank Barrage. And the best part about this card is you can throw a Bicycle Kick with Kami, who is in AT normally. He's got AT 4. You throw this card out with a Bicycle Kick, which is an AT 5 physical, 9-stage physical coming out. You can stage lock physical decks and take away their AT potential against you. On top of the fact that you can outright, with Checkup Drill, you hit them for 10 to take them from 10 to 0, from full to 0. Super strong combination, and helps you throw Tank Barrages for unpreventable 7 life. Very good. And of course, a little Kami flavor, of course. You wouldn't have a Kami deck if you didn't run this card. This card is so good. Probably almost should be at a 2 in this deck. I suppose we'll see what happens if this deck gets picked up by Darrick again. He's really the only one that really plays this. I tested against this deck a lot for a while, but we have Guardian Drill. Of course, if you don't know what this card does, it mills each player at the beginning of each turn for a number of Earth Dragon Balls that you own. That doesn't mean that you have to control these balls. Your opponent could be taking them, and you're still going to mill them. And it is awesome. You can do some really crazy endgame shenanigans where you get down most of your deck is balls, and you just drop like 3 balls in this drill. You mill your opponent. Let's say you have ball 4 in your hands, which mills your opponent 2. You have like a ball 5 and a ball 6. Let's say you have those 3 balls that you're able to play. Your opponent destroys 1 for each of those balls. There's 1, 2, 3, and then plus 2 from this, 4, 5. You get to pick out of their pile. You drop this drill, and it goes to their turn. They got to mill 3 more cards. They milled 8 cards without even being able to interact with it. And when you get to the end of the game, that is very scary. That is very scary for your opponent. That's what. And on top of all these other little drills that are just milling them a couple of cards a turn, it is just like kind of death by 1,000 cuts almost, but you still have the potential to hit them with big cards, which I'll tell you about in a sec. But that closes out our drill package. We do also have the 7 Earth Dragon Balls. I think that's pretty much, you have to run all 7 with Kami. I mentioned it before in my Radiant video. You really need these Dragon Balls. All have their own effects. They have like slight tech effects on most of them. You're just going to be playing them in this deck mostly to mill, and then to immediately just shuffle them away for a drill. They're really not here for ball out necessarily. They are there. You can ball out with this deck. I've done it. Darrick's done it. It's a great backup, but they're really just mostly there to just search and facilitate your searching and setup of your board state here. Now we move on to the attacks. Orange Stare on 3. Board clear card. You can't run an orange deck without this card. It is so damn good. It is so hard to not run this card, even in adept decks that are really trying to focus the physical aspect. It's so hard not to run that card. 2 power point. Even though we got all the searching in the world on Kami, getting the drills out even quicker and having some endurance while we're doing it, and a big energy tag. I'll take it. Orange Sweeping Drill. Oh, sorry. Orange Sweeping Blast here. Super, super great card. This is a card that I know Fogler himself really likes running. And I know other people, that I've played against, big orange players, orange Yamcha players, really like this card. This card is just as exceptional in Kami because he can pretty much always guarantee that he's got a drill to proc this thing. Super, super strong. Kami's Focusing Beam. Again, sure we have PowerPoint, we have the level 1, but just kicking out that drill state quicker, and on top of the fact that you can choose a modifier and play, you go choose your Aura Drill over here, and this is coming in for 6 life cards. Pretty respectable on top of being a drill searcher. It's just like a PowerPoint. I think this is a very, very good card. You can even do some shenanigans where you give them a Guardian Drill, or you give them a certain drill, or whatever, or you give them a Dragon Ball that you're going to go proceed to just cap back or something with a Tank Barrage, or a critted energy attack here. There are some combos, with this card. But for the most part, we're not really focusing on giving them the card. It's really just for that drill search. Next we have Orange Bicycle Kick. Of course, one of the key components of the deck. One of the key players that used to be pretty ridiculous. Definitely a lot weaker. The main combo, of course, in this deck is that you're going to be filtering out drills such as Checkup Drill, of course, Crashing Drill. These are really the main two that you're going to kind of like cycle out, in and out, maybe even Distracting Drill. You're going to be cycling those drills out and then bringing them back into play, usually, hopefully under the presence of an Orange Torching Drill. So you'll make them destroy for each drill that you're putting back into play with this card. Also with things like Checkup Drill, you rejuvenate it, put it back into play, or you take it out of your deck, maybe if it wasn't even on the board yet, and put it into play, and you go grab yourself a block. Basic orange combos here. But with this deck specifically, it has really good synergy with the Crashing Drill and the Torching Drill, and that was one of the big combos of something, And there were people playing this combo, I think, mostly in adaptive decks. For the most part, they're just adaptive decks. But this deck really was the first that I really feel like it was really capitalizing on that. Of course, now this only, I think, grabs, 3 drills? Or it's either kept out at 3 or 5. I'm sorry, I'm a little rusty on it. I've been playing so much Z the last few days. I haven't even barely touched this deck forever on top of it. But I'm pretty sure you can only grab the 3 drills now. So I did get a power decrease because before you were able to hit these board states where you could do 7, 8, 9 drills that you'd rejuvenate and kick back and play, and there's 8, 9 mil that you just did. It's still worth running in this deck, though. It still has the combo, and sure, maybe the destruction isn't quite as good, but it's still a very, very strong card in some anger hate. We also have Tank Barrage, just a closeout card, just a very, very strong card, and because we have Distracting Drill, Tank Barrage, and Bicycle Kick really are no slouches on damage, but this is just a really, really clutch game-ending card, too. Of course, we have 3 Orange Memory. This card is busted. I hate this damn card so much. No matter what, you're going to be getting a drill with this card, and the worst is you can just draw these on your own turn. You drop them, go get a drill. You drop a drill out of your hand. Maybe you drop a ball. You pass, and you retrieve a card, and you're just getting so much advantage with these cards as the game goes on. Somebody enters on you. Oh man, some guy's going to kick my head into Bora. Oh, guess what? I had this in my hand, so I take the first physical on my stages. I lose most of my stages. Oh, I play Orange Memory. I go grab Checkup Drill. Okay, now I got Orange Swerve. Okay, he throws an attack at me. Oh, I Orange Swerve. I kill my Checkup Drill. Okay, I Kami and I go and get whatever other drill I want. Or it's just that's just like if you get entered on this thing. Not to mention if you wanted any of these other these other drills. Maybe you're worried about dig or conference drill. Maybe you're worried about maybe you want to facilitate some more mill in combat or something. And this is purely if you're getting this drawn on you. It's a great card no matter what and has endurance. I hate this card so much. So damn good. Time, of course, got to be in there. Orange Meditation, that used to be a 3 of, and then, of course, this got limited to 1. I wish I could run in a 3 still, because it was so damn good in this deck, but, you need some anger hate, that's there for you. Worst case scenario, maybe you're going to get leveled by someone's Clash of Wills. You just play this card and stop yourself from getting leveled. But really, you're just mostly saving it for the for the effect on it, but you can always ditch it parenthetical and then just rejuvenate it later, which is nice. We got 2 Confrontation, so there's Rejuvenation in this deck. There's enough of it, and there's deck shuffling where you can run cards like Confrontation and most of these attacks here, and even a lot of these events and blocks, and you can just cycle them back into your deck. But it's still just a super strong control card. Of course, we have Heroic Energy Sphere to stop my opponent's events. Again, 2 of, because we can cycle them back in the deck. 2 Destruction, can shuffle it back in the deck. You don't always want this card early, but this is one of those game-closing cards that Bicycle Kick used to be, but also Tank Barrage still is. You get this board state of where you just have like 8 or 9 drills, and you pop this out for like 8 or 9 mil, and there's like us, 6th, 7th of your deck, your opponent's deck just gone, on top of all this a little bit of mill here, and then these chip attacks in level 1, it's just like a great closeout card, and you just throw them back in the deck with the Rejuvenation. We'll move on to the blocks here. I guess we'll start off. We got 1 of Juke. I mean, this card can always fluctuate to whether you want it in the deck or not. It's just down to 1 right now. I could always see it, swapping out maybe an Orange Defense. Probably gonna swap an Orange. I actually don't really know why I said a 1. I wasn't the last person messing with this deck. Well, I was a little bit, but I could definitely see swapping, Orange Defense out to the second one of this, just because kicking. If you see this early game, gives you an extra drill, but also just putting them back in the deck is always good. But Tutorable Omni, super great card. If you're worried about people spraying it, I suppose, but definitely probably just gonna just kick that Orange Deflection or Orange Defense with a little bit of scrape on it for another one of these. But this can definitely fluctuate. I think you don't necessarily need 3. I think 2 is a good number. I mean, 1 even, I suppose. But we have 2 Orange Refocus. Stupid good. You're just pulling drills out of the pile, and with shopping drill out, your pile doesn't get touched. You're just building up board. Orange Sweep, of course. Orange Swerve. I hate this card so much. This thing makes Combative just a complete headache for physical decks. Especially with Kami 2, because you can pretty much always guarantee that you're going to have a drill, and it gives you stages to reuse his level 1 if you were to get like stage locked. But you can kill Checkup Drill with this, go grab Checkup Drill with Combative Mastery and get another block, and on top of this having a dual use if you killed a drill with it. So strong. So strong. It sucks it's banished after use. I say it sucks because this card's already stupid, and if you could abuse it more, this I don't even know, man. I don't know. But this card is so damn good. You got Orange Defense here. Of course, I grab you the crappy looking one, but this is just such a strong card. Helps you pull out your drills quicker. I think this should actually just be at a 2 in here. I did actually have an open slot. I pulled this deck out and there was an open slot missing. I think it's because we stole the Juke for a different deck. So this should probably just be an Orange Juke. So really it should be 2 Jukes here, but either way, really good card. You can pull out the block drills with this. You can, I'm trying to think what else can you grab here. Where's the active power drills? Okay, it looks like it's only the 2 block drills. Oh, and you can grab a traction drill with this. Okay, yep. Okay, not as terrible as we thought. Yeah, but it really should just be a 2. I mean, this is really subjective to what you have in your deck. If you have like things like possession drill, which I think I did take out of this deck myself. Which I think maybe could probably go in here. Probably should go in here. Why not? I don't know where I put it yet, but maybe in the place of Thumbs Up. But it could turn, or you can even turn this slot into it, but, still I think it's a very respectable 2 of in this deck, but I think this is either I think this slot's going to actually turn to Juke. It's supposed to be Juke. We have, behind that, okay, we have our final cards in the deck of these energy blocks. Of course, we have Orange Dismissal. This card is just nonsense. Again, this card abuses Checkup Drill just like Swerve can, except it shuffles out of play and gets you whatever you want. So strong. It procs off, and again, Swerve and Dismissal both over here play really well off Torturing Drill and Crashing Drill. And then, of course, you have Orange Energy Catch. Just big endurance, really. We're not really caring about anything else. It's just purely for endurance. There's other energies I've considered, and I think Darrick might have ran them, and he didn't really like them, and so that's how that ended up staying here. But this is an energy I think I always consider for most Orange Drill decks. I think Orange Withdraw is really good. It just kind of depends, but I really enjoyed this one. It does give you some anti-anger if you do play it out of your hand, which is always welcome, but You know, I think the endurance ultimately in the end is what wins that spot. But really, there's not a amount of, there really isn't too much endurance in this deck. You're really pulling on the power of just the rejuve off the 1 and the checkup drill. Your Guardian Drill rejuvenating cards. You're really just trying to slow game them and mill them and kind of inhibit their play. You just got so many blocks. You got to call for your time. You're just building up this board that like your opponent has to hit you with at least like 2 to 3 attacks before you finally or throw at least 2 or 3 before he finally hits you. And in the meanwhile, you're just sitting there milling him and you're laughing at him as you're just playing balls and dancing on his face. Very, very good. Very, very, very good deck. I think it's still pretty legit, even without VTP. But maybe you disagree. I think definitely this deck has suffered from the release of Modern Vegeta. I feel pretty much all these combative and adaptive decks, even Mischievous, to an extent, have suffered from Modern Vegeta being a thing. Broly Dynamic was already a tough match too. Of course, Broly Dynamic really needed to be on his level 2 to really start hurting you, and you could just drop a ball 2 on him. Not saying that that was a regular occurrence, but, I think, especially with Vegeta being around, it just kind of depends on how much you think. There's a lot of these decks out here that I think, these orange decks, that really kind of depend on what kind of answers do you have to Majin Vegeta. This doesn't. It just doesn't. I think Puzzler could maybe make it in this deck, but, I think that's kind of just that's just really kind of, personal playstyle and preference. But for the most part, I think it's a pretty solid list. I think, again, just like this should be a second juke. I'm like 100% certain that was supposed to be juke, and I'm like looking at it now, and I'm like, this makes no sense as I'm putting this deck out. But this is more of a deck that I would test a lot against. I don't think you're really going to ever see this deck in the wild too often anymore, but it's something that I think you could totally throw in a gauntlet just to respect. You need to be able to handle, I think, decks like this. And this is definitely a tough deck, and this definitely can come back, and like I said, even if you're beating it in all game, you can get these weird like end game turns where he gets destruction for a bunch or tank brush for a bunch, or he gets that end game, drops the guardian, has the guardian drill out and he drops a bunch of balls, and you just comes to your turn, you've milled like 7, 8, 9 cards. It happens more often than you think. That's just kind of the Kami aspect of what he adds to this, but there's a pretty consistent deck even without VTP. But again, I think Majin Vegeta is a big reason why you don't see this anymore, and the VTP freezing is a big part why you didn't see this. But I think it's still a contender. Maybe certain cards in here you don't agree with. Maybe there's a certain drill I'm missing. Maybe you don't like certain attacks I'm running. Maybe maybe my numbers are a bit wonky for you. Maybe you found better experience with something. I think this overall has been really solid. So maybe we can talk about this deck and how you feel about it in the comments below. But I really appreciate it, guys. Hopefully this kind of gives some insight, and hopefully you can at least use this as a gauntlet, if not as like a main deck for yourself. I think this is still really fun to play, and I think it's a really good way to teach people about. I honestly think this is a pretty good deck that showcases skill and a good way to kind of bring people into the game. So, but hopefully you enjoy this video. Appreciate the watch, guys. Thanks.